And being that it is 2 o'clock in the afternoon, again, sorry about all the dead trees and all that. That was a mess that I wasn't planning on. But anyway, it made it adventurous, didn't it? It made it adventurous. Yeah. At any rate, what we're going to do is move out. We're going to shift gears to Buell's army on the second day. We're doing April 7th now. And kind of concentrating on Kentucky units. Perry had, I think you came up with this, didn't you, Perry? The Kentucky brigades, regiments, and Kentucky regiments are kind of spread out all over. Oh, you got a, what is that?
Overall
kind of a blow up,
and then that's what we'll be hitting.
Okay, yeah. When the Kentucky units are kind of spread out like this, it's hard to take one brigade and do it all. We're going to pick Sanders Bruce's brigade of Nelson's division and kind of head out with them the direction they moved out through Cloud Field and Wicker Field and so on, and kind of pick up the action there. But then you got like one regiment in Hazen's brigade, I believe the 6th Kentucky, and then in Smith's brigade you got, and I get them all mixed up, it's like the 9th and the 13th Kentucky, and then in Buell's brigade, those two are Crittenden's division. You've got like the 7th and something else, I can't remember them all, 26th Kentucky in another brigade, 5th Kentucky in Rousseau in McCook's division. So they're scattered out all throughout the division. So it's hard to hit all of them, and so we probably won't do that. And given the lateness of the day already, and that y'all got to be at Hagee's by 6:30, that's a key thing. We'll probably concentrate on Sanders Bruce and get him to attack in Sarah Bell's cotton field, and then we'll see kind of what time it is and how much others that we can see through this. But I think Sanders Bruce's brigade will be a good kind of indication of what's going on. Yeah, this is a little bit later. Nelson's division, Ammon on the left, Bruce in the center, and then Hazen. Those are the 3 brigades, and of course Hazen and Bruce both have Kentuckians in them. So we're going to move down to their bivouac site, which is in the woods down here, and then we're going to do what we always do, and that's cross Dill Branch Ravine. How many of you have never crossed Dill Branch Ravine? Yay! Oh, we got some good fresh meat here, I guess. Yeah, nothing to it. But then we're going to move out following their line out. So that's basically what we're going to do. So now we'll go do it. Oh, thank you.
I never got it from this direction.
All right, here we go.
Come from that direction this way.
Yeah, the trailhead, you can buy them online.
The trailhead I got. Well, this one.
Bridge over Dill Branch Ravine, right? And you can see here 2nd Kentucky, 1st Kentucky, 20th Kentucky. This brigade with its regiments in order above bivouac here Sunday night, April 6th, and advanced in the same order Monday morning. Sanders Bruce, Mona was just telling me that he's Morgan's brother-in-law. Morgan married his sister,
yeah, Rebecca,
right?
He married Rebecca Bruce.
I did not know that. You learn something every day on these tours, don't you?
She died before Morgan left to join up. He waited till she was sick.
Because she died, and then the baby died. So.
The baby was dead.
All right. Of course, Jacob Ammon's brigade will be on his left. William Hazen's brigade will be on his right. And so this is Nelson's division. All of you know about Nelson as well. This is the guy that liked to slap people and winds up dead because of it, you know, in the Galt House, I believe, in Louisville. He slapped Jefferson Davis. Not the Jefferson Davis, but Jefferson C. Davis, the Union general. And Davis did not appreciate that much and shot him, which apparently, you know, the big thing now is bully, bully, bully. Everybody's bullies and all that kind of stuff. Apparently Nelson was a bully. He was a big brute and very not a very nice guy apparently, and Davis shot him. So anyway, that's after Shiloh. He's still alive here, of course. It's not like Davis was another person either, right? Yeah, he doesn't wind up in prison or anything like that. Yeah, got promoted.
Actually, no, he never
Good job, Jeff.
He never got promoted.
Huh?
He never got promoted.
Jefferson Davis didn't?
He got higher positions, but he never got a promotion in the
got
regular
a
or the volunteers.
promotion, yeah.
He
Okay.
was also indicted, but never tried.
Right. Yeah.
When your
never-
buddy's Oliver Morton, that can
Yeah.
help you.
Yeah, political connection. Okay, 2 or 3 things to mention here. First of all, this is their bivouac site, and they come in. Doesn't say anything about when it goes into bivouac or anything like that. But Nelson's division is the one that marches from Savannah across land, basically, to the river opposite Pittsburgh Landing, and then ferried across. McCook's and Crittenden's divisions will come by boat, of course, during the night. So these are the first ones here. Ammon's brigade, of course, is the first, and a couple of those regiments put in some companies here, and supposedly helped stem the tide. I'm not, it's not like it's Gerhard von Blucher or anything, in Waterloo or something. Give me Blucher or give me Knight. Of course, the Army of the Ohio thinks the rest of its history that we saved Grant's bacon at Shiloh, and Grant, says no, we had it under control. You didn't save anything at Shiloh. What I found interesting, and we always talk about you can go by the primary sources. The primary source is the most important thing and all that, but they teach you in graduate school that the primary sources are only as good as whoever wrote the primary sources, and so you can get a different spin on things even then. I think it's obvious that Buell's army did not save Grant's army. I think Grant's army could, and you're talking last line tomorrow, aren't you? Okay. Well, I'll shut up about this mostly, but at any rate, is that your take? I think we've talked enough that that's your take, that Buell doesn't save Grant's army here. No. But if you read the letters and diaries of Grant's soldiers, they think Buell's army saved them. Yeah. They think Buell came in, saved the day and helped us defend this line and so on. We can see, a little more reality from 150 years later, so you can't always go by what they're saying, especially perception and all that kind of stuff. At any rate, I think the key here is what we're going to see on the rest of the day here. I think Grant could have held this last line of defense behind. I mean, y'all saw Tillman, right? Y'all saw that. We struggled through it. You're going to see Dill. We're going to struggle through it probably too. Grant could have held this last line. He could have held it, at daylight on April the 6th. I'm guessing he could have held it all through the day or April 7th. He could have held it all through April 7th. He could have held it on April 8th, April 9th. The Confederates aren't going to take this last line of defense. Now, in terms of counterattacking, I do not think that Grant could have counterattacked the way he does on April the 7th without Buell's troops. That's the important thing that allows Grant to go into a counterattack mode. And actually, Bjorn and I were talking about this. We had dinner last night when he got in. We were plotting strategy, I guess, is what we were doing, how we're going to do these things and all that. Strategery, yeah, that's what it is. But we were talking about Karl von Clausewitz. And y'all are familiar with Clausewitz, the Prussian military thinker from the Napoleonic era and all that. You've got Jomini and you've got Clausewitz. And neither, I don't think many Civil War officers could spell either one of them, much less have read them and so on. But they did have a lot of Jominian influence through Thayer and Mahan and all those at West Point who had read all of this. But there's not a lot of Clausewitz indoctrination, if you will. That what we get from Clausewitz pattern basically had to come from common sense and just kind of pick it up. And Grant is one of those, I think, that picked this up. In fact, I always joke that like Barbara Mandrell was country when country wasn't cool. Grant was Clausewitz when Clausewitz wasn't cool. Nobody knew anything about Clausewitz, but Grant was operating on those Clausewitzian principles. And one of the defining areas that you can see, and mostly it's on the operational level, when Jomini and Clausewitz, and I'm digging way in the ditches here, but when Jomini and Clausewitz talk about strategy, they don't mean what we think of as strategy. There are 3 levels of war: strategic, operational, and tactical. What they call strategy in the 1820s and 1830s is really what we today think of as operational. the operational level of war. So you don't really get out of tactical. What they're talking about is operational. But Clausewitz talks about the culminating point. And basically it's the idea that an army moving into an enemy's territory can pretty much overextend itself and get supply lines too far and too vulnerable, and you peel off too many of your troops to control those supply lines, defend those supply lines, and you get too weak, and finally you just get to the point that you can't operate anymore and you can't push forward. That's the culminating point when you are at your weakest. And what he says a defending army should do at that point is what?
Counterattack.
Counterattack. That's the point. They're at the weakest, and you should turn right back and hit them. And he says every defense, a big part of every defense is the offense, where you turn and go on the offense, and you have to know when to do this. Classic example of this on the operational level is when George McClellan moves up the peninsula, right? And he moves toward Richmond, keeps moving toward Richmond, and gets up to the Chickahominy and all of that. He kind of outstrips a little bit his supplies and so on. He gets a little too far overbalanced toward that. And what does Robert E. Lee turn around and do? He starts hitting him at the 7 days and hitting, and he drives him back. So it's a classic example of that. Now on the tactical level, we see that here. What have the Confederates done all day yesterday? They push. Are they out of gas? Are they extended a little bit too far? Have they tipped their hand a little bit too far? They're most vulnerable at this point, right? And what does Grant do the next day? Boom, he hits them and drives them back. They are at the culminating point, and Grant hits them perfectly in a Clausewitzian fashion. Now, we don't see this out of everybody else. What would have happened, let's just compare a little bit. Corinth, so we're right around Corinth. If Rosecrans had counterattacked on the second day of Corinth, man, he would have probably destroyed that army. There's nothing left, at that point. What if Rosecrans had counterattacked at Stones River on January the 1st? You're a Middle Tennessee guy. Would that have made a difference? Could he have driven Bragg back? Possibly.
Bragg's army wasn't as wiped out
as Johnson's here, but Johnson. Yeah. But something to think about. What if McClellan had counterattacked on September the 18th at Antietam? He had several corps that weren't even. You could take to Gettysburg or anything. So a lot of times you don't see this counterattack like you do at Shiloh, utilizing that culminating point. I'm sure Grant had never heard of the culminating point, or Clausewitz. He may have heard of Clausewitz and so on, but he got this, intellectually and common sense kind of thing, and he will counterattack, and that's what we're going to follow, kind of in the largest context here of Bruce's brigade. So as they move forward, we're going to move forward with them toward Dill Branch. You haven't done Shiloh till you do Dill Branch, and we've got somebody, you got them positioned on the other side to give the t-shirts out, right? And, okay, you get a t-shirt when you do this. Participation ribbon.
And clown noses.
And clown noses, yeah. There was something else I was going to talk about here. What was it, Bjorn? I can't remember what I was. Do I?
The beer tank on the other side.
I can't remember what I was going to talk about.
Kentuckians.
Kentuckians, there's some animosity between Nelson and Bruce. Animosity between Nelson. They don't like each other, and they're fussing with each other. But I can't think. I'll think of it later on. Let's
On rappel!
easiest way to go down, honestly.
Don't run over the man ahead of you.
Senior staff is being used. You know what I mean? Yeah, so Grant doesn't have to get his hands dirty. Like you've been doing it all your life, right?
I need help. Oh, thank you. I was going to use stick trick again.
Probably did the following moment. She's never falling down. I've always seen her fall a couple times. But she keeps getting up. Working on. She knows how to climb.
I might snap off.
What's up this way?
What was that, rock?
A rock, a big dirt fall. Oh, excuse me. We're looking some bottom land down here. Batman, na 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 na. You don't want, oh, you I'm tired of carrying you. Come on,
You know, we did this for scouting with all the
Okay, Jack.
that entrance down over there.
Okay. The closer, ironically, the closer you get to the river, the safer you are. Because as you elevate the guns to get over the bluff of the river, you just barely skim the bluff of the river. It's, you know, you're gonna be in that dead zone in there, and then you can land it out there. Y'all made it.
Chalmers is pretty safe. Gun runs,
You see what I'm talking about? The creek splits here, and it goes two ways. And I was trying to tell y'all just go up the creek here instead of going over, because you're gonna have to go down and come up again.
we
So
wanted
we're going up that hill there.
Notice you didn't come get it.
I was trying to get.
My brain is starting to work it out.
The original tablet?
I know. That, the yellow tablet where we started, this is not oriented south. It's oriented. And so right now, we were not going, we're going all the way back on the rock. We were not going south. off of the very big direction to get it. You know what I mean?
Yes, yeah.
Getting the sensation. We got people who've been here before.
Exactly. I love whenever I find this. There's only one place in old timey concrete comes from. That's the original part of construction. Some stuff is pulled out of the quarry and stuff over here. Probably 6 maybe. You mentioned it, I have. The rack storage is here. And now that you mentioned it, I had a staff right there. That's when I was working here. And the more senior people were not available, and I got to take a bunch of...
We had moved on to try to catch up with the lost battalion, but apparently the lost battalion is lost for the rest of the day. So this is us. Yeah, they disengage. They retreat and save yourselves. That's we gotta.
We're doing that tomorrow.
We gotta get Powell to retreat and save yourselves. Appler, that's his new name, Appler. He's got names for everybody. Colonel Appler.
He's got a nickname.
Yeah. All right. Couple of things just to sum up what we just came through. Again, my philosophy of these hikes is not necessarily to tell you much of anything that you don't already know. Y'all can read the books and all that, and a lot of you are very versed on Shiloh. The way I see these hikes is to put the history that we know on the ground and connect the ground and the terrain and all that, and that's just exactly what we did. And you don't understand people when they say, you know, our people don't understand when they say, well, they could have just continued on taking Pittsburgh Landing. You know, at the end of the day, why didn't they just continue on? But you saw why they don't just continue on. The Confederates are going that direction, and as we came out this direction, the farther up Dill Branch Ravine you go, as we saw, it splits, and you saw where the two creeks split there, and some of you went up and down again. And several Confederate brigades like to do that. Now, when Almond and Bruce and Hazen are coming out this direction, they have to navigate this same thing. Now, Crittenden and McCook will go the smart way like our lost battalion did and went to high ground, which basically where we were today, where we came out at the end of the pond thing, is just right over there. That's where that crossroads is there. So we've kind of made just a big circle. But here's the key to the terrain and all that in terms of at least my thought, and historians can argue about this. I'm not seeing anybody, you know, push back on it or anything, but my contention is that if Beauregard was on his toes, he kind of dropped the ball here a little bit. If he was on his toes on the morning of April the 7th and had fashioned a line, and I know you got the gunboats out there and so on, yeah, that's a significant factor in favor of the Federals. But had Beauregard pressed his position forward and held the lip of Dill Branch and the lip of Tillman Branch, or maybe not even the lip, but at least have defended somebody coming across that, like the Federals did on the first day, what would it have done? Would it have stopped the Federal advance? We don't know. That's, you know, pure conjecture. We don't know. I think it's safe to say it would have delayed it. Because, I mean, how hard was it for us to get across there? And we don't have packs and rifles and rain and all that kind of stuff. And it literally takes, all across the battlefield, I'm kind of getting into, well, no, you're on the evening of the 6th, right? You're not dealing with the morning of the 7th or anything. Right. But it literally takes Nelson's division and Lew Wallace over at Tillman and those in between and so on. It takes them 2.5 hours just to negotiate these ravines and get them across and form up on the high ground on the other side. So it takes that long. What could have happened if the Confederates had it even just a little bit contested this advance and shown any resistance. What would have happened? Again, we don't know, but I think for sure it would have delayed it. And my thinking is, would it have delayed it long enough for Grant to come out and look and say, I don't know whether this is worth it or not? Do we really want to do this, or we just want to hold our position? Would they have stopped them cold? Don't know. Probably not. But it would certainly have delayed it, and that might have tinkered with the timing and with the Confederate preparation in the rear and so on. So my contention is that Beauregard kind of dropped the ball and didn't have things prepared. And what we're going to see, of course, is the first actual resistance we get is back at Wicker Field here. Now, apparently there's some skirmishers out here, the Forest Cavalry that run into Nelson's division as they move out. But the first real resistance is not going to be to Wicker Field, where Chalmers' brigade is. And that's upwards of, 8:30, 9 or so in the morning. So you're leaving out at daylight, like at 5:30, and the first action doesn't occur till 8:30, 9 out there. It's taking these guys a while to get through, mainly because what we just saw. Yes, sir.
So obviously the question is, why didn't the Southern troops do that? What was the condition of their troops?
Well, that's a factor in it, obviously.
How many miles did they have to march before they got here?
Well, they mostly inhabit the Union camps back here, and that is problematic in and of itself, because they're holes shot in the tents and dead bodies in the tents and all that kind of stuff. One division of Polk's Corps actually goes back to their bivouac site on April the 5th night, which that's just same old Polk. What is Polk doing? That's the question we continually ask throughout the Civil War. What does Polk think he's doing? What's he doing? Duh. But at any rate, they are on the ground, and again, if Beauregard had, but you have to look at Beauregard's mindset. Of course, he thinks it's just going to be a mopping up operation the next morning. We're just going to mop them up, and nothing to it. And of course, it's anything but that, because he starts here and firing over here, and firing everywhere, and all that. And he's it's almost like, I kid about at at the Vicksburg Visitor Center, the best-selling item, if somebody would do it, if somebody has a 3D printer or whatever, start producing John C. Pemberton bobbleheads. And that's exactly what's going on with John C. Pemberton. He's looking this way and that way, and he Grierson's behind him, and Grant's over here, and he's a bobblehead. But you can almost do that with Beauregard too. Beauregard's looking this way, and you don't know that would be a good thing, a Beauregard bobblehead. But he's looking everywhere, and it's that famous story. I love the story that Beauregard's getting ready to mount up and head out to the front and command the army on the next day, and way behind the lines, of course, and so on. And one thing he does, he tells his staff surgeon, Dr. Britton, I believe is the surgeon on his staff, and he says, here, check my pulse. I want to know what an Army commander's pulse is going into battle. And check the staff officer's pulse, too. Now, who would think about something like that on, going into battle? But he also makes the comment, and this interesting story, he says, this is like one of Morph's blind games. Y'all ever heard of Morph's blind game? What he's talking about, there was a sensation around 1859, 1860 in New Orleans by a guy named Harry Morphy, which Morphy's his actual name, but they call him Morph, kind of like, us Braves fans call Dale Murphy Murph, right? So anyway, they call him Morph, and apparently the guy got extremely famous for just a very short amount of time, because he would play chess blind. And he would have an opponent, you and I playing chess, and he would be blindfolded, and somebody would tell him where you moved and he has to memorize, where the move is, and he would move accordingly, and then he would have to memorize your next move and so on, and lo and behold, I would beat you, blinded. I don't play chess. I couldn't beat you unblindfolded, but that was how he did it. So he got even bigger, and he would play multiple games at one time, blindfolded. And at one point, he played as many as 10 games blindfolded at one time, memorizing where my pieces are in this game and where your pieces are in this game. But also, I got to memorize in my game with you and my game with you. And 10 of these,
Like the Queen's Gambit.
Huh?
Queen's Gambit.
Yeah, you got to memorize all this stuff. And he won like 7 of them. He won like 7 out of the 10 games, and so it became a sensation and all that. And so when Beauregard is talking about this is like one of Morph's blind games. they're over here and they're over here, and we don't know. It's like we're blindfolded. We don't know where they are. They're coming out of everywhere like fire ants. You ever kick a fire ant hill, you know? And the Confederates talk about this. They just come out from everywhere. And that's what's happening when the Federals start moving out on the morning of April the 7th. So it goes a lot back to Beauregard's mentality as well, but it's plain and simple that he simply does not have the Army prepared to fight on the morning of April the 7th. And where you lay that blame could be in any number of places, but he is the Army commander, and the buck stops with him until you read his memoirs, and then it doesn't. So.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
I think your assessment makes sense to guard the lip of the Dill Branch on this side. Do you think Beauregard didn't have a good knowledge of the terrain up here? Because he didn't come this personally himself, never came this far, very far on that afternoon, did he?
No, he doesn't. He never
Okay,
gets
so he's
his,
way back there.
Yeah, as far as the crossroads is, as far as he gets his headquarters.
And he
there
didn't
about
have good
2:30.
maps either, did he?
No. They know nothing. That's the problem with the Confederate
Federals know
thing,
all about this.
sweeping around the left flank. Yeah, the Federals been camped here
Been
for
here
3
for
weeks.
2 weeks,
So,
or 3 weeks.
they don't know that these ravines are over here, and you can't sweep around the left flank. You just can't do it. And so no, Beauregard doesn't know this, but he's had Forrest up here. He's had others that have been in here, and Chalmers and them have been across this thing, and Pond has been across this thing. I mean, the knowledge is there. It just doesn't get transmitted up the chain of command to formulate a working policy the next morning. And Beauregard apparently makes no effort to find out what's out there. You know, is there a good defensive area that we can hold out there, or should we just, you know, go back and chill out in the tents the rest of the night?
His mindset was it was going to be on the 7th. It was just going to be a mop-up.
Just a mop-up operation. Yeah. So it won't matter anyway.
Because he really didn't want to attack at the very beginning. He wanted to turn
Well,
in late,
yeah,
so he was
he's
already.
He's ready to turn tail and get back.
You could have a part in all this too.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, he is sick, and working on this Johnson biography. It's not really a biography; it's an examination of him in the West and so on. But he found a quote by one of his staff officers, who, after this meeting on April the 5th, the Council of War, the famous Council of War, that he pulls one of his staff officers and said he said, I never put much stock in the opinions of sick men. Like, okay, we know Beauregard's sick, and Beauregard's been kind of, you know, trailing off a little bit, but to hear Johnson say, and this is the staff officer's account, you know, that I never put much stock in the opinions of sick people. So, you know, and physically it does affect your mind and so on when you're sick. I mean, it's just part of it. But Johnson's not too interested in listening to him. All right, everybody got a good rest? Everybody with me? I've been talking the whole time. I need a rest from the talking. All right, we're going to continue on. If you figure out what we're doing, we're kind of angling away from the river, and that's exactly what Nelson's division will do, as the river road basically parallels the river, and as we go forward, Nelson's division is going to gradually cross over. First, Hazen's brigade is going to cross over, and then Bruce is going to be astride. By the time we get to Bloody Pond, Bruce is going to be astride of the river road, and then Almond always over here. But the division is moving kind of at an angle. Those of you who've got the Reed maps probably shows this on the back there, how they're kind of angling out. So we're going to head just through the corner of the woods. We're not supposed to go in the eagle thing, but we're going to skirt through the woods right here. I think y'all want to go through another thing. Show you right here, and it's a good convenient spot to stop the shade too. This is Wicker Field, where I was talking about the first actual contact occurs, and as word gets back and the sound of firing and advancing and so on gets back to Beauregard and the rest of the army, they start forming their line mostly back at the Hamburg-Purdy Road in this sector. Now it will curve and go up through Ruggles Battery and over to Jones Field where we were earlier today and all that. But by and large here on this flank, it's at the Hamburg-Purdy Road. In front of that, however, is one brigade, Chalmers Mississippians, which will hold the south side of the field here. And this is where the first contact occurs as Hazen moves into this area. Sanders Bruce is still kind of moving diagonally. There'll be a straddle of the road right up here, and by the time we get up to Bloody Pond, and then Almond, of course, farther to the east out there. But this is where the first contact occurs, and we get a little bit of information from Ambrose Bierce, for instance. And Bjorn, isn't that thing published that you did on Ambrose Bierce?
Yeah.
And it published on
online, Journal of the Ambrose Bierce Association.
Journal Ambrose Bierce Association.
And it's the walking tour that I made for the internship.
Yeah, yeah. Really good piece of work if you're interested in Ambrose Bierce and 9th Indiana and all that. And you're right, that's the 9th Indiana monument right here. And then you get Mendenhall's Battery, and that's what, 41st Ohio, I believe. 6th Kentucky will be part of that brigade. I think their tablet is right up in the woods up there. Do what?
Yeah, it is. It's in the woods.
It's in the woods up there. So this is Hazen as he's moving forward. Before they enter the field here and get into this major scrap at this point, they'll be on this side. And I love the story that Ambrose Bierce tells that you know, they stopped at the edge of the woods and they send skirmishers across the field, and they don't know what's out there, and all of a sudden Chalmers Brigade unleashes a volley at them, and they're running back across the field, and you know, bullets are hitting mud behind them and splattering up mud and all that, and this breathless lieutenant gets back to Ambrose Bierce and says, "I want to report Confederates out there." Ambrose Bierce is like, duh, you know, we knew that. Thanks a lot. But it's entertaining stuff. And some people, I get emails every once in a while about, can you trust Ambrose Bierce? Is Ambrose Bierce any good and all that kind of stuff? And you know, for anecdotal stuff like that, I think it's absolutely fine. You know, I wouldn't.
Trust Ambrose Bierce about what?
Well,
More
yeah.
than money.
Yeah, really. I would trust him more than I would Lew Wallace, actually.
Yeah,
so
but
that,
for
you know.
Civil War stuff, sure.
Exactly. So anyway, this is where the first contact occurs. Also of interest to some of you that may not have been to Shiloh before, see that artillery battery right through there. That is John Wesley Powell's battery, Illinois battery, that is in action on the first day. And if you know about John Wesley Powell, he's the one that lost an arm here. Apparently, Bjorn, have you done any study into Powell? Apparently the where they were in action, where he loses his arm, is a little bit farther forward to the south. Yeah. But he's raising his arm, whichever arm it was left, I think, you know, saying fire, and a bullet hits him in the arm. So they cut it off, amputated. But he then goes on to become like the head of the U.S. Geological Society, and he's the first one to go through, he and his team, through the Grand Canyon, all those rapids and all that on the Grand Canyon, doing that without an arm, you know, one arm. And I read a book about it one time, I forget what the name is, Down the Great Unknown or something like that. But he talks about he's climbing up the rock faces of the canyon and all that, one-armed, and so I wouldn't do it two-armed, much less with one arm. But that's pretty famous connection here with John Wesley Powell. So, all right, we'll move right on up. This is Bruce's brigade tablet right on up here. First Kentucky, 20th Kentucky. The brigade regiments and orders above, the 20th Kentucky in reserve, was engaged here at 10 a.m. April 7th, 1862, advanced across the Peach Orchard. All right, 2 or 3 things to mention here. Once the little fight here in Wicker Field occurs, Chalmers very quickly withdraws and goes into the main line back at the Hamburg-Purdy Road, which is on the high ground. You can't really see it, but you know the lay of the land. You go down in that little ravine where Johnson died, and then up on top of the hill, if it was clear, it would be a higher ridge up there. So that's where the main Confederate line is going into position. So when they get here, this is where they go into position, and you can follow the rest of the Union line as it comes on up. They'll go into position here, and this is where they start figuring out, okay, how are we going to take care of this? How are we going to do it? What are we going to do? We're going to move forward or whatever. Almond's brigade up in the woods here, Bruce here, and then Rousseau over there. You've also got artillery, and you see the U.S. Artillery Monument. The park, all these monuments go up by state funds. The individual states put the Illinois monuments and the Iowa monuments and all of that. Not so much on the Confederate side. It's mostly regimental and veterans groups and so on that fund the Confederate side. But there's no state to do the U.S. regular troops to put a monument up to them, so it falls to the federal government, and the Park Commission says, well, we want to put monuments up to them as well. So they will actually, I believe, if I remember correctly, they will petition Congress and get a special appropriations for these monuments and so on. So this is the U.S. artillery monument. You see the artillery cannon tubes and all that. There is also a U.S. infantry monument, and there is a U.S. cavalry monument that goes up over in Wicker Field over there. Is this one of us? No, he's not. At any rate, this is denoting the 2 U.S. regular batteries. You see H&M of John Mendenhall, and then of the 4th U.S. Artillery, and then Battery H, the 5th U.S. Artillery, Captain Terrell, which you see their position right here. See that oval tablet right there? That's denoting Terrell's position. And Terrell's an interesting character, and some of you probably know more about this than I do, but this is William R. Terrell. What's his brother's name? Anybody know? And it's not a trivia question, I'm asking for information here. He's got a brother, Mr. Terrell, that is a Confederate general. This Terrell is a Union general. So you talk about brother against brother, it's like the Crittenden boys, George Crittenden and Thomas Crittenden. And as I understand it, both of them are killed. This Terrell is killed at Perryville. If any of you are interested in Perryville up at in nice Kentucky park. There. Huh?
Very nice park.
Yeah, it is a state park, very well done state park. But Terrell's killed there. The brother is killed somewhere else. I can't remember, maybe Virginia or something. But supposedly the father put up a monument to his boys, and on the monument it said, "God only knows which one is right." So brother against brother. That's what it is. Now Terrell's battery. It's really interesting looking at its action here. This is one of those that is actually driven back, and you read the reports and so on. Chalmers Brigade makes a flank attack and actually drives Terrell's position back. I think it's a little farther forward than this position. They get a little too far forward, but the real interesting thing about what they do retreating, I think probably to this position, we could go read the text, I don't remember off the top of my head what it says, but they actually withdraw by prolong. Do y'all know what prolong is? When you've seen a cannon actually in action, you see the carriages, you see the little spikes that stick out both ways down on the trail of the limber of the carriage there. There's supposed to be a big old rope wrapped around that, like a figure 8 thing, and that's called a prolong rope. And what you do is you hook the thing in the hole in the end of the trail there. And instead of where you hook it over the pintle hook on the limber, and instead of hooking it to the limber and riding off, you hook the rope to it and then hook the other end of the rope to the limber, and you can basically drag the cannons along. Just like that. Just think of that with a rope to over here and then connected to the limber and the horses and so on. So you're dragging it just like that, just sliding it across the ground. But what that'll do, that will allow the cannoneers to work the piece and sponge and ram the shell and all that as it's falling back. And so this is actually an artillery, in the artillery manuals, firing by prolong as you are retreating, and that's exactly what Terrell's battery does here. Now I've not seen accounts of volunteer batteries doing that. Certainly here at Shiloh, Bjorn, have you seen any accounts of any other firing by prolong or anything? These are, remember, regular U.S. batteries, so I'm sure they drilled in that and so on. Some of the volunteer batteries have not had that chance to drill to that extent. In fact, some, for instance, Stanford's Mississippi battery, when it goes into action and fires its first shell ever, they're firing at Yankees here out at Lost Field. The first time they fire their guns, they're firing at the enemy. And the same with Silver Sparks battery back at Pittsburgh Landing. It's one of those batteries that had just landed, doesn't even have the horses. The men have to haul the guns up the hill, and they go into position there, and they set up some corn sacks in front of it. And J.D. Webster himself, Grant's chief of staff, is out there drilling these Illinois boys, showing them how to ram the cartridges and all that, trying to teach them how to do it. And the first time they shoot their guns, ever, they're shooting at Confederates across Dill Branch Ravine there. So, you know, you can't expect folks like that to know how to fire by prolong or something like that. So, lots of different levels of preparation and experience here. All right, what it says, it advanced across the peach orchard. Now, this is where we get really interesting. We know the Confederate line is at the Hamburg-Purdy Road up there. We know Bruce's brigade moves out into the peach orchard and attacks. But as we go across the peach orchard, you won't see any yellow tablets. There's nothing out there marking Bruce's position out there. We know they attacked. We just don't know where, and the commission didn't know where, so hence they didn't mark it, because they didn't want to mark it wrong. And I respect that, you know. I don't know, I can't remember the specifics of it, but I don't know if they didn't have anybody from the Kentucky regiments, any veterans to come back, or I'm not sure exactly what, you know, kept them from marking it. And it probably, if they just had to rely on the reports, and I could, again, get the reports out, the reports don't say much of anything. Just, you know, we advanced and met the enemy, and that was that. You know, it's just not very helpful and detailed. Did you read the reports before you came? Yeah, it's just not that much to it. But again, we know that they advanced out there, so we're going to advance out there with them, and hopefully we don't get shot. Now, we're not going to go through the bloody pond.
And I'm gonna sleep in this road. So you're the Donaldson earlier? And you see those photos, powder. God. How long do we put on that? Not my wife.
Says, across the river Sunday at 5:30 p.m. After forced march from Savannah. You know, everybody talks about Buell's troops, fresh troops. Now, they're not really fresh. They hadn't been in action the day before, but they're forced march from way under overside of Savannah, so they're pretty tired. Formed in line of battle, resting our arms during the night. About 4 o'clock a.m., the colonel commanding ordered forward 6 companies of skirmishers. The brigade followed, 1st Kentucky right, 2nd Kentucky to the left, 20th Kentucky reserve. After marching about half a mile in this order, our skirmishers encountered those of the enemy. A brisk fire was maintained. Our skirmishers advancing as those of the enemy receded for about 3/4 of an hour until they opened upon us with artillery. Their batteries gallantly charged, and the skirmishers of the 1st Kentucky, assisted by a portion of those of the 19th Brigade, that's Hazen, and succeeded in capturing one of the guns. This is where whoever was talking about capturing one of the guns. But were unable to hold it, being repulsed the largest spear force of the enemy. After engagement became general, the colonel commanding the brigade was ordered to assist the 19th Brigade, Colonel Hazen. That's farther over there. The regiment sustained a galling fire. 20th Kentucky was ordered up to the support of the 1st Kentucky in this movement, which did under severe fire. Both these regiments deserve the highest commendation. So between 9 and 10 o'clock, this is where we're getting out into here. The 2nd Kentucky was ordered to charge a battery at our right, which was playing on our left flank. That's probably McClung's battery, which we're going to go down this road. If you'll notice when we get out to the road's going to kind of make a turn like that. And McClung's battery is going to be basically just to the left down here. So if Bruce is out in this field doing this, it's gonna put McClung's battery right down his flank. Well, actually, this says it's on our left. Playing on the left, there's Robertson's battery out there. One of these reports, though, I'll get to in just a second, talks about they're firing down parallel to on our line here, which is McClung's battery. Captain so-and-so Fight of this regiment in executing this order became almost hand-to-hand with most terrific character. Within a very small compass, there in the regiment charge could be counted over 200 of the enemy lying dead upon the field. He doesn't say they killed them, but a lot of Confederates are lying dead on the field from the first day. So, you know, he's padding his report a little bit, I think, here. Succeeding in taking one of the, we already talked about that in the wrong paragraph. 20th Kentucky Active Reserve placed in position support the 1st Kentucky, where every officer and soldier displayed such distinguished courage, it seems almost invidious. What does invidious mean? Right? Know what that means? Guessing, you know, it's no use in to particularize, he says. The colonel commanding the brigade desires to make a particular mention of the following gentlemen. We won't go into all that. Let's see. Well, I'll never find it just standing here, but we're resting, so we can. Before this is Sedgwick of the 2nd Kentucky. Between 9 and 10 o'clock, by order of General Nelson, we moved forward in line to the right to attack a battery. The enemy was shelling our left wing, same thing that he was talking about. After advancing cautiously for about a quarter of a mile, I found that we were on line perpendicular with the battery. It's probably talking about Robertson's battery, Napoleon's up here. Fire was so severe for a moment that officers and men recoiled, but we soon rallied and advanced step by step, supported to the right, gained the edge of the thicket, so and so. We don't need to. He talks about in retiring and so on. We could go through all of these reports. If somebody wants these at the end, we can give it to you. But the gist of what is going on is that Bruce comes out into this field, and again, we can't document where, but he meets the Hardee's position here. Now, Hardee, of course, his entire corps is fighting his 3 brigades together over on the other side of the battlefield, but Hardee's commanding over here. And he's got this brigade commanded by John C. Moore of the 2nd Texas. And if you've seen the film in the visitor center, it talks about, you know, Moore moving across and being told that there's Confederates in front of you, don't fire, and they fire anyway. And the staff officer says, you know, I'm gonna shoot you if you fire again. And he's like, they're Yankees, and no, they're Confederates out there. But he it becomes this brouhaha. It's also here that is kind of interesting. Hardee talks about, he calls, I believe it's the 2nd Texas, and there's another example of this as well. I think it's the other example that happens right here. He calls the regiments cowards because they won't go across that field and all that. And the whole regiment, about faces, fires a volley over Hardee's head, and then turns back around and goes, you know, about faces again, and goes back to fighting the enemy. Basically telling Hardee, shut up, you know, we don't hear anything else out of you. We've been fighting for 2 days now, and we don't need to hear any lip from you. So, nerves are getting frayed a little bit here.
Yeah.
At any rate, the whole gist of it is that Nelson, including Sanders Bruce's brigade, and what we're going to see next, we're going to spend a little bit of time at Daniel Davis Wheatfield with the 6th Kentucky, with Hazen's brigade. They run smack into the Confederate line here, and you can see, this is the first day position, but see that oval tablet down there, and then they continually on down, and we'll see a lot of them on the road out here. There's that's a Army of the Ohio tablet. But these oval tablets, this is the Confederate line as it's first formed on the 2nd day, and what amazes me, and really to me the whole story of the 2nd day, is that the Federals, even these fresh, you know, quote fresh Federals, when they encounter the Confederates, they're stopped cold turkey. I mean, they don't budge. They don't move. From 10, 11, 12, 1 o'clock later, you know, we'll see a little bit more, but the Confederates stop them cold turkey. So for the Confederates that's been fighting all day yesterday and been pretty much forced march for a couple of days before that, you know, we talk about forced march for Buell's folks and so on. Sure, they're tired. They're not fresh by any means, but these Confederates sure not fresh. And so for them to be able to put up the resistance that they put up for most of the morning on April the 7th just boggles my mind. And it's not a lot of the story that you get on April the 7th. You know, you don't normally hear a lot about that. And what boggles my mind even more is that they're able to counterattack. We know about the John C. Moore counterattack and so on. But what you're going to see all down this line at the Wheatfield, we're going to see that next, all down the line, all the way to Jones Field. We're going to see the exact same thing. The Federals move out, they hit the main Confederate line, and they're stopped cold turkey. In most cases, the Confederates even counterattack. Now, they're not able to drive them away, of course, or drive them back to the last line or anything, but they're able to at least mount a counterattack, which just, I mean, that's amazing that they fought all day yesterday and were able to do this again today. So in that context, that all of Buell's army, what was left of the Army of Tennessee, Grant's army, on from the first day that moves out in that gap between Wallace and Buell, all of them run smack up to the Confederates, stopped cold turkey, and nobody is able to drive the Confederates away. The Confederates hold their position that they held from the beginning. This is their initial line, except for Chalmers out there, and he's just kind of out there to delay them a little bit before he takes his position in the line. Where's the one place that this formula is not played out? Over at Jones Field and Sowell Field, where Lew Wallace does something different. What does he do? He doesn't just attack up the gut like these guys are doing. He goes around, he flanks, he maneuvers. And so to me, Wallace doesn't do it just once. He does it once at daylight, basically, when he moves through Glover Field and outflanks Pond's brigade, you know, that we saw this morning. And then he'll do it again, the big one that, basically, what's the word I'm looking for? It undermines this major line at about 10 o'clock or so in Sowell Field, the picnic area, and you can see when we go out there, you can see just as plain as day how the regiments line up. You know, the Confederates are like this and Wallace is like this. You can tell how he goes around, and then he does it a third time later on in south of Crescent Field there. So everybody jumps on Wallace. You were lost on the first day, and you didn't lose anybody on the second day. So you must not have done much fighting, boy. You know, you're not any good. I would have wanted to been in Wallace's command, because he maneuvered rather than attacked and didn't get his guys shot up. And to me, you know, I'm pretty hard on Wallace sometimes, and we've joked about Wallace and all that, but to me, he's the key factor on the second day, because while Sanders Bruce and these Kentuckians and all the other Kentuckians up and down the line here are beating their heads against the Confederate wall here, what is he able to do? He's able to maneuver and get around and do with much less casualties and much less fighting what none of these could do anywhere else. And as a result, the Confederate line has to fall back, and eventually, if they keep falling back, these guys got to fall back too, because you're going to be cut off from the Corinth Road, which is our exit out of here. Kind of like our exit out of here, Shiloh Church. That's what we're aiming for. That's where our vehicles are. You can't get cut off from Shiloh Church, so the right wing eventually has to fall back with the left wing. So, any questions here? Anything? Let's head on down the road. You'll see the oval tablet, and we'll detail a little bit of the fighting that's firing directly into. Sarah Bell's cotton field there. So if Bruce is coming across that cotton field, he's opening up his right flank just exactly to McClung's battery here, and they wreck it, as do the Washington artillery, which is on down the line and got even a little bit more curve. They're firing down the line here as well. So Bruce's brigade sustained some pretty good casualties. The heaviest fighting and the most casualties is going to be Hazen's brigade up here. We'll see at the Davis Wheatfield.
They have an actual forge thing on display.
Forge wagon, yeah.
Yeah, pretty cool.
Here's one long rope. Goes kind of here, and if you see an actual gun in a visitor center or something, it'll have that on it.
Here.
No.
No.
That some of them could have been, but they didn't keep real good records on serial numbers and all that. If you look at the markings on them, they'll have, you know, where it was made, like the Ames factory or whatever, date 1862 and so on. But it's hard to keep up with what serial number was attached to what battery and where they were and all that kind of stuff. These are original Civil War pieces, and they come to the park in the late 1890s. Out of the Watervlay Arsenal up in New York, in Albany, New York. They're just in storage. Of course, they're obsolete by then, and we're looking to get rid of them. And so what better thing can we do than give them the national parks and let them mark artillery positions? So there are 2 or 3 that are inscribed, purposefully inscribed, that they were at Shiloh and so on, so you can document those, obviously. But the vast majority of them you can't document were actually here. but they were somewhere, and some probably could have been here. You know, it'd been just by pure coincidence.
Also heard that there was a cannonball stuck in one of the barrels here.
There's
That's
one
in
at the
the
cemetery,
cemetery.
and there's one also at Ruggles Battery at the end of Ruggles Battery down there. All right, this is Daniel Davis Wheatfield, and this actually is where the heaviest fighting took place on the second day. And this is where Hazen, and we're kind of off of Bruce's brigade a little bit now into Hazen, which is, we're continuing our Kentucky theme, is the 6th Kentucky and Hazen's brigade. And they'll make the attack here against the Washington artillery. Now, what you get here is a double line. There is evidence that there is a double Confederate line here. And apparently, the Confederate officers thought the double line extended all the way down to like John C. Moore's area, and that's why they told them, don't fire, they're Confederates in front of you. It did not extend that far down, but there was a double line here. When Hazen's brigade attacks, it moves into the wheat field, and as we see here, it will capture several pieces of Washington artillery. Gage here, 11 a.m. Lost 3 of his guns, but were soon recovered. The battery was disabled and obliged to retire with the loss of 3 caissons, a battering wagon, and a forge. The blacksmith, basically. Coming to the rescue to recapture the Washington artillery. If you know about the Washington artillery, there are 5 companies of the Washington artillery. 4 of those companies go to Virginia and fight with Robert E. Lee in the Army of Northern Virginia. 1 company is with the Western armies here and winds up obviously at Shiloh and elsewhere and so on. And this is another New Orleans artillery outfit, you know, the Blue Bloods from New Orleans and all that kind of stuff. And so they will they'll lose the guns here. There'll be a counterattack by the Crescent Regiment, so we're connecting with our Inner Ponds Brigade from earlier this morning kind of thing. I don't know if you saw the Crescent Regiment tablet right over there. They come forward, they retake the guns. There's hand-to-hand fighting here. And I think it's here that if you read the report that Colonel Whitaker of the 6th Kentucky writes, if you read his report, somebody else maybe read his report, he writes in the third person, and it's him writing the report, but he talks about, yes, Colonel Whitaker slayed a Louisianan or something like that with a Bowie knife, which he had taken from a Texan or something, you know. I mean, he goes dramatic and all that, and he's the one writing about himself doing it, you know. And so he apparently slayed a Louisianan right here at the battery. One of the private, I mentioned the private Confederate monuments, not done by the states, but by the veterans organizations or just wealthy veterans or something like that, is the Louisiana Crescent Regiment behind you. There it is over there. And you can see the crescent moon there. To me, it looks a whole lot like the hammer and sickle of the Soviet Union, which, you know, whatever. But it's supposedly the Crescent Regiment, and this is their kind of claim to fame here. The Crescent Regiment goes out of existence after 90 days, so we're talking Ponds Brigade. But I think, anybody Crescent Regiment folks, they come back into existence later on in the war. There's another Crescent Regiment or something in it. But
I don't know how many of the people in the second one.
How continuous it was, yeah.
It might have been just a totally new thing with the same name.
Same name, yeah. I don't. Marshall Smith's not the colonel of it. I don't think. I do remember when I was here 20 years ago at the park. Every once in a while there'd be something on auction or eBay or something, and we actually bid on a photo of Sarah Bell's cabin. And it turns out we were bidding against one of our park friends, you know, on eBay to get the photo. We won it though, but y'all heard Bobby Bear's song "The Winner"? Y'all ever heard "The Winner" where he's talking about the guys challenging him to a fight, and I want to be the winner now. I'm gonna take the title from you. I'm the winner, and so the guy tells him, you know, what it really means to be the winner, and he talks about, I've got a cauliflower nose and my ears broke, and you know my jaw's been broke so many times, and that's the winner. And he goes on to say, yeah, I took this woman from another guy and fought him for her and all that, and he said she gets uglier and meaner every day. But I got her, boy, and that makes me the winner. You know, so be careful what you wish for, I guess. But at any rate, heavy fighting here. Hazen's brigade, including 6th Kentucky, will lose. Upwards, I believe, if I remember correctly, 400 and something men, which is very comparable and more than a lot of the brigades in the Union Army lost on the first day. So it's extremely heavy fighting here. And it's another example of kind of a vortex. You've got the Confederate line here, and then it kind of curves and goes to the northwest up there. So it does something kind of like that. And Hazen enters, kind of like Pond did earlier today, he enters right into this vortex. So he's taking a lot of different directions. And as he moves forward, there's a Confederate brigade, John D. Martin's brigade, that outflanks him. And then you bring up Crittenden's division, which Suey Smith's brigade then outflanks him, and they're outflanking each other just kind of like dominoes, you know, step by step, and so on. So it gets pretty serious fighting out in Daniel Davis Wheatfield here. So probably the heaviest fighting of the day on the second day. All right, any questions here?
Hey, Tim.
Yes, sir.
Something I was going to say about this monument back here. I remember from one of my Boy Scout nights, commissioned by an individual down yours, a doctor
Or Lemonier or somebody like that, yeah.
So the guy went to a lot of trouble and expense to get this put down, worked with the park and everything. So when the dedication comes up, he's sick and ends up dying. He never saw it.
He never
saw
here.
it, never laid eyes on it.
Yep. Yep.
It's upset there wasn't a Louisiana monument here, and he couldn't get the state to do it, or
Right.
to pay for it or whatever. So he did it himself. Never saw it.
Do it on yourself. Yeah, I think Lemonier had been involved in the Confederate Museum down in New Orleans and several different New Orleans things down there. Wealthy man and
That museum's awesome too.
it's got a lot of
Very
original, real stuff. So
I read that Mary Todd Lincoln's brother was in the Cressman's division and was mortally wounded here and died on his way
So was
back.
Washington Artillery.
is that you know more of the story? I know Benjamin Hardin Helm was killed at Chickamauga, of course. And that was
They had to
Lincoln's
find
brother-in-law
his
and so on. What
Yeah,
Alex Todd.
it was the Orleans Society and the League.
And yeah, he would have been wounded in the fight and
Yeah.
died
We're gonna
somewhere
get
on
the
the road
credit
to
for it
making
though.
the fight.
We're gonna go home big shot.
There's also a Todd that is, I believe, a battery commander that's captured at Vicksburg. That was Mary's brother. So,
Yeah.
lots
And
of-
another one killed at Baton Rouge.
in Baton Rouge. So, yeah, you can kind of understand the angst of the United States folks when, you know, the First Lady's family is, you know, all into this, especially after Chickamauga when they bring Helm's wife, what's her name, Emily,
Emily, and she
to
comes
live in the White House. You know,
with the kids.
a former Confederate general's, dead Confederate general's wife, is living in the White House with him there. So, and that doesn't obviously last long. That's what do they call it now? Tone deaf. I think that was tone deaf. A little bit. All right. Tell you what, let's do. It is 4:20. We spun our wheels, obviously, in the downfall, the woodfall, and all that down in Tillman Branch, and a little bit in Dill Branch as well. Waiting on the lost battalion there, and which is still lost. But so we hadn't had quite as much time. What I intended to do was to cut across the Hornet's Nest here and to see some of the Kentucky positions of Buell's brigade and Suey Smith's brigade, and then wind up at Duncan Field and see Rousseau's brigade of McCook's division, and that's where the Kentuckians are fighting the Kentuckians. They fight Trevoux's brigade. So you talk about Kentuckians versus Kentuckians is on. It's not far of a walk through there. It's 4:20. We can do that.
We got daylight, and we have an unofficial reservation anyway.
At 6:30.
At 6:30.
Okay, you got nothing to do at 6:30 anyway, do you? So here's the deal. If you would like to and not slam war out, we can go do that. I mean, it's still fairly early anyway. We didn't aim till getting done like at 5:30 or something, or dark or whatever. But if you who's interested in doing that? Who wants to go do that? Several of you. Okay. If you want to do that, we can go do that. Probably still be back by 5 or 5:30. If you don't, the route that probably we would take at this point back to Shiloh Church is just down this road to the Wraith Monument. Take a left, and you're at Shiloh Church. If anybody's had enough and says I'm done, that's the route we take anyway. So you can just do that on your own. Go to your car and be done. If anybody needs to get back early or something like that. Those that want to, though, since we've got time, and those that are willing, we'll head on and do some more Kentucky. Is that good? All right. Let's head out. Mr. Hornet's nest is impenetrable thicket. This is the same Suey Smith. Several of them mentioned Gerson's raid. This is the same Suey Smith that goes on and launches Gerson's raid. It'll be the same Suey Smith that's involved in the Meridian campaign, the movement southward from Memphis, supposedly to link up with Sherman and Meridian, never get there. But 26th Kentucky Infantry, you can read this regiment engaged here at 10:30 a.m. April 7th. Participated in the charge upon and capture of a battery at the Wheat Field. Seems to be a little generous there. Fell back to this place at 12 a.m. Advanced again to the Hamburg Road and was engaged until 3 p.m. This is Smith's brigade that outflanks Bowen or Martin's brigade that outflanks Hazen's brigade. As they're outflanking each other, Smith comes up and outflanks and drives back Bowen's people. And then we've got the other regiment. I can't remember which Kentucky regiment that is. Into my brain here, but also Smith's brigade. So if you look, Smith's brigade is angled something like this. Its attention is focused pretty much on the Wheatfield fight and Martin's brigade and all of that going on. And what we're going to see, the other brigade of this division, of Crittenden's 5th Division, is going to be Buell's brigade, Jeremiah Buell, and they're going to be right over here, but they're going to be kind of facing that direction. So the division is kind of doing something like that, and there's a little bit of a split in between the two brigades, in fact, and they bring up a reserve regiment, the 14th Wisconsin, that goes into the middle, and that's where you get Putnam's Stump up there, and they capture Harper's Mississippi Battery and so on up there. But this is Smith's brigade. And its attention is focused on the Wheatfield type area. We'll see what Buell's attention is focused on. And the Kenosha bunch were here, and we had the group picture made around the Wisconsin bunch.
I knew he was going to come down and you were going to take him around.
Yeah, that was just a couple of weeks ago.
So did they do 14th Wisconsin up and down the road? Or do you just take pictures at the monument?
They just took pictures at the monument.
Okay.
We keyed in on most of the Wisconsin, 16th Wisconsin, and don't tell Jim, but we did all of that. And, 18th, and 14th here. So, but yeah, they specifically wanted to come to the Wisconsin monument.
I'm sure Doug told you he has this Captain Sachs cane.
Yeah, we went to Sachs's grave, and then we were killed out there, and all that. And I think he said he had something from, maybe it was me talking about Benjamin Allen, the colonel of 16th Wisconsin. I think said he had something of it. But
okay.
What we're talking about is if you're ever up, if you ever happen to be in Kenosha, Wisconsin, go to the Civil War Museum there.
Until this current thing is over.
Well, yeah, probably so. But super nice Civil War Museum there in Kenosha. All right, so here we're Buell's brigade, Crittenden's division, of course, and this was the 9th. What was that back there, 11th? I believe the next one is the 13th. I can't remember these things anymore, but I think it's the 9th and 13th. We'll see them on down the line here in just a second. But again, this regiment was engaged here about 10:30 a.m. April 7th. Advanced 500 yards, was driven back to this place after several movements, advanced again to the Hamburg Road. This fits into the modern narrative, of course, and what Buell's brigade, and there's an artillery battery. We haven't talked about artillery battery with the Army of the Ohio. When Nelson's division marches overland to be crossed over the river, it's so muddy they can't bring their artillery with them, and so Nelson's division's artillery is left back at Savannah. As a result, he has no artillery going into battle, and Grant, or Buell, actually says, well, we need to shift some batteries over to him. And so Mendenhall and Terrell are not or whatever, what division is that? 6th Division, I think, Nelson's division, whatever. They are not Nelson's division's artillery. They're loaned out to him. The other battery that comes from the Army of the Ohio is Bartlett's battery, Bartlett's Ohio battery, which we'll see just right up here, and they will deal with a Confederate battery on the other side of Duncan Field. But opposing Buell's brigade here is Winfield Statham's brigade. Now, this is the brigade that had made those assaults across Sarah Bell's cotton field on the 6th, participating in Albert Sidney Johnston's attack and all that kind of stuff. They are now with Breckinridge's entire corps. I find it very interesting that the Confederate Army fights more as a cohesive whole on the second day than they did on the first day. We think the second day they just all go crazy, you know, and go different directions, but Breckinridge's whole corps of 3 brigades is fighting together. Hardee's whole corps of 3 brigades is fighting together. The 2 major divisions of Bragg's corps fight together. Now those 2 divisions don't fight with each other, but the 3 brigades of each division fight together as a cohesive whole. Polk's corps, that's the worst one, and who to argue against that with Polk, but everybody's mixed and matched there, and the worst organized brigade on this battlefield is A.P. Stewart's brigade. Alexander Peter Stewart's brigade got 4 regiments, and on the second day, those 4 regiments fight in 4 different places, none of them together. So that brigade has completely shattered. So across Duncan Field, where Ruggles Battery is, probably when you're walking down Ruggles Battery, you never notice an oval tablet in the middle of all that because it doesn't have cannons by it. So what nobody's gonna notice that. But that's Winfield Statham's position in Breckinridge's line. And as Martin begins to move forward, we're going to get the rest of Breckinridge's corps also moving forward. Certainly Statham's brigade, and they move out into Duncan Field. Buell's brigade, as it says here, moves out into Duncan Field, advances 500 yards, and it's pretty clear that they meet each other going forward. I was telling Bjorn on the way through the woods there that sometimes it's very difficult. We know the Confederates move forward on certain areas, and we know the Federals move forward on those same areas, but we can't always tell which moved first and which was in reaction to the other. It's hard to tell from the reports actually what happened, but it's super hard to synchronize the Confederate and the Union reports to make them mesh. But it's pretty clear in this case that they're both moving forward, and they meet out in Duncan Field, and there's a pretty good fight out in there. And it says, of course, driven back to this place. So this again fits the narrative. The Federals move out, they encounter the Confederate line, and they're stopped cold. And at times the Confederates even make counterattacks and drive the Federals back to their jumping off positions and so on. So this fits the exact narrative, same thing that we've been talking about all the way down the line until we get to who? Lou. There you go. I didn't mean for that to rhyme, but we'll take it this way. That right for a change. But Buell's brigade, and if you look forward through the sunlight here, you can see Duncan Field out there, and where the sun shines through the field, allowing it into the trees there. So Buell's brigade move forward, and they're not the only ones in it, of course. The 2 Kentuckians that we're talking about. But they'll move forward, hit Statham's brigade, and of course be driven back, as it says here. Basic carbon copy of what it says over there. Advance 500 yards, driven back to this place, and so on. Here's Bartlett's battery that we mentioned is involved in this fight. Stanford's Mississippi battery is still on its position in Ruggles' line. The rest of the artillery's gone, but Stanford's battery is out there firing into this area. There's also I believe it's McClung's. No, not McClung's. What's the battery out there, Bjorn, with Trey Boo's brigade? Harper? Is it Harper? No, Harper's up here. Okay. We'll see it when we get out there. We'll remind ourselves. But anyway, there's some artillery dueling back and forth as well. Also, I mentioned earlier today this ridge that we were up on, where the reserve artillery, Richardson, Stone, and Welford's battery, that really probably is the target of Ruggles' battery. This artillery is more the target of Ruggles' battery probably than the infantry up there. But there's the 12th Iowa and the 14th Iowa fight that direction. Finally, when they try to get out, they fight this direction, and that's why you see this tablet right here that is not in the wrong direction. Most of the time you would think, gee whiz, why is that blue tablet facing that direction? That's the wrong direction, but that's actually right at this point. Still not convinced that the dollar.
No, I can't either. And I didn't know if we had to I just made it for 20, but I did not do that. And I told her too, I said, don't.
Well, I like authenticity. Yeah, I mean, I really do.
Second, when he gets cashiered for being a drunkard. So he's removed from command, and thus Breckinridge, the only general officer in the division, is booted up to command the corps just 3 days before Shiloh. You know, so you got a pretty good turnover in command and so on, just immediately before the battle. Same thing Grant's Army going on there. All right, 5th Kentucky Infantry, Russo's Brigade. We're now in McCook's division as Nelson moves forward and angles a little bit along the river road. Crittenden pretty much stays on his right flank. When McCook finally comes out, and this division lands like at daylight and after on April the 7th. So they're sent right out here. So they're sent out the Corinth Road. And so the Corinth Road at this point has made a curve kind of to the due west, if you look on your maps, while the river road's going pretty much due south. So they're getting much wider as they go. As a result, there's a gap opening up between McCook's division and Crittenden's division, and that'll later be filled out around Review Field by some of the Army of the Tennessee units that come in, and even some of Wood's division of the Army of the Ohio. But McCook will continue on down the Corinth Road, and then eventually the Corinth Road, of course, will turn back south there. But here we get the 5th Kentucky, the famed Louisville Legion, that's in the second line, the reserve here of Russo's brigade. You can see the front line, this Indiana monument right there. Disregard the Iowa monument just past it. Disregard this Illinois monument, and disregard this Illinois monument over here that you can't see, so you don't have to disregard it. But this Ohio monument right here is the front line, and then the Louisville Legion here, and then you've got that tablet. I believe that's the what? 2nd Iowa. I don't remember.
Michigan, isn't it?
14th Michigan. That's
15th Michigan.
15th Michigan. Yeah,
Oliver?
That's
Yeah.
Oliver. That's what that is. Coming in support. And then you've got the U.S. regulars. Where's the monument? Somewhere up in the woods, up in here. Is also attached here. So they're moving across Duncan Field, and they move pretty quickly till they get to a field. The field back at the UDC monument, they stop there and they make some contact there, although it's just skirmishers and so on. They get here and they meet Breckinridge's line of battle. And this is Treboux's brigade across this field, Statham farther down, and then Bowen Martin's brigade that's involved in the Daniel Davis-Wickfield fight even farther down. But they will stop here and fight across the field, and then when the Confederates fall back, they'll move pretty quickly to the next field. So the Confederates are defending the fields is what it is. And that's Wolf Field. As you see here, they advance to Wolf Field, and that's where you get the fighting around the Water Oaks Pond, and the heavy fighting where Kirk's brigade of the other brigade of McCook's division comes forward, and the Russo's brigade breaks ranks, or doesn't break ranks, but they open ranks where you go behind each other, you know, and allow, it's really a cool maneuver that happens under fire, you know, that Kirk's brigade is able to move through the ranks of Russo's brigade, and Kirk gets hit pretty hard out there. Kirk's wounded, and one of his colonels is killed, Simeon Bass. But at this point, Russo's in front, so they're fighting Treboux's Kentucky brigade over there. So again, if you want brother against brother, we got Kentuckians here in this brigade fighting Kentuckians right across this field. So I thought this would be kind of an interesting place to finish up the Kentucky story, you know, with Kentuckians fighting Kentuckians. Let's walk across the field and see where the Confederate position is. Fourth Kentucky, 6th Kentucky, 31st Alabama. Who cares about them? You leaving? The 5th Kentucky, 4th Alabama Battalion, Cruise Tennessee Battery, 3rd Kentucky, Breckinridge Corps. Brigade was engaged here until 10:30 a.m. It fell back to the left rear and later to Shiloh Church. The battery supporting them is Burns, Mississippi Battery, which we'll see as we go right down. Burns and Bartlett will actually fire back and forth. There'll be an artillery duel back and forth there from that tall ridge behind the the sunken road and the hornet's nest out there. So this is one of those areas, you know, you can pick out certain areas like at Stockade Redan at Vicksburg where Missourians are fighting Missourians almost hand to hand, you know. And this is one of those cool areas, I think, where Kentuckians are confronting Kentuckians. And, you know, I haven't looked into it where, well, Louisville, whether any of the 4th, 6th, 5th, or 3rd Kentucky came from Louisville, but it would be interesting to know, you know, if some of these folks knew some of those folks in there, you know, or even kin or something, you know. I haven't looked in it. That'll be a research project for one of y'all. So, that's your homework next year. You report to us what you find out. So. All righty. At this point, that's going to do us probably for the Kentuckians. What I think we're well within time. It's 5:06. By the time we get back to Shiloh Church, it'll be around 5:30, and y'all can head out and go to the Hagees and all that. So, well, we'll wait till we get back to church to get a mileage report here at one point, like in the 1920s or so, and that's part of that. There was also a Methodist church right back in that area, kind of in the quadrant back in there. That was actually the Methodist Episcopal North Church. Shiloh Church was the Methodist Episcopal South Church, because when the Methodists split in 40, they were the first, I think, 40, maybe 40, 41, whenever they split, over slavery, just like the Baptists do. The Baptists split, I think, in 1845, over the issue mainly of slavery and missionaries to, you know, foreign lands and all that kind of stuff, and that's where we get the Southern Baptists now. The Methodists had split into Methodist Episcopal North, Methodist Episcopal South, until years later on when what happened? Anybody Methodist? If you're Methodist today, what are you a member of? The United Methodist Church, because they reunited. The Baptists never reunite, but the Methodists reunite. So this little part of history here.
This was a service station.
You here is a lot of times we think Beauregard ordered the withdrawal at 2:30. So the battle ended at 2:30, right? Well, no, they're still fighting as late as 4 o'clock. No, there comes Bruce. Anyway, to put a nice tidy bow on the day, thought we'd come by here. 38th Tennessee Regiment. We started with Pond's Brigade, of course. This regiment with several others forming an independent command of about 1,000 men under Colonel Looney. Charged over this ground about 4 p.m. April 7th, 1862. The charge covered the retreat of the Confederate Army. Rarely does an officer, particularly under the general officer status, a colonel, get his name on a plaque. But why does Colonel Looney get his name on a plaque? Because he's the commission member here putting up these plaques. So, you know, rank has its privileges. But that will end the fighting on the second day, 4 p.m., about 4 p.m., and then, of course, the Confederate Army will retreat, just like we're going to do, by Shiloh Church to the Corinth Road. Of course, you can see it there. You're on your own.